San Francisco, May 1995. In the mailbox, the usual pile. A pizza coupon, a flyer for a car wash, and a check for $95,000. The man holding it has $200 to his name. Not 200,000, 200. He and his girlfriend split a single ice cream cone because 2 cones is a luxury they skip. So he laughs at the check because, of course, it's fake. It says so right across the front in plain block letters. Non-negotiable. He feeds it into an ATM anyway, as a joke. Nothing more. And the bank cashes it. Not for a day, not for a week. $95,093.35 sit in his account, and the bank does not take them back. No forged signature. No stolen card. No law broken. Just a piece of junk mail and a machine that swallowed it. 2 mistakes are already ticking under this story, and neither one is his. One belongs to a machine. The other belongs to the bank. And when they go off in favor of an unemployed writer with a joke in his pocket. Here's the part that doesn't add up. In the end, he gives every cent back. All of it. And walking away with nothing, he comes out richer than if he'd kept the money. So how does a broke writer with $200 force a bank to hand him a small fortune, without forging a single signature, without breaking one law? His name is Patrick Combs. 28 years old, living in Haight-Ashbury, the San Francisco neighborhood that once roared with the 60s, and by the 90s has settled into cheap rent and people getting by. Patrick has just done the bravest, most terrifying thing a person can do. He has bet everything on a book. He wrote it himself. A guide for college students, how to find a direction, how to build a career, how not to drift after graduation. He believes in it. He poured his savings, his time, and most of his hope into it. And it isn't selling. The boxes sit in his apartment like furniture, stacks of his own words, going nowhere. He is the kind of broke where the mail is mostly bills, where every parking ticket is a small catastrophe, where you learn exactly how far a tank of gas stretches. The dream that a stack of paper would turn him into someone is quietly falling apart on his floor. Here's the irony he can't see yet. It will be paper that makes him. Just not that paper. A completely different sheet, one he gets for free, buried in a pile of junk mail. He is not a con man. He is not casing the bank. He is a guy counting quarters. And the check is a punchline he wants to tell his friends about over a beer. Something to laugh at, prove the world is absurd, and forget by morning. It comes from a company called the Association of Certified Liquidators. It's the kind of mailer that flooded American mailboxes in the 90s. Get rich quick, come to our seminar, and look, here's a check to show how much you could be holding. To make you tear the envelope open, they print something inside that looks like real money. A number big enough to make a heart skip. $95,093.35. They stamp non-negotiable across the face, so no one on earth could mistake it for the real thing. It is not a check. It is an advertisement wearing the costume of a check. And then they make one small, expensive mistake. To make the fake look convincing, to make it feel like the real payday waiting for you at the seminar, they don't print it on ordinary paper. They print it on real check stock, with real magnetic ink. Hold on to that magnetic ink. It is the whole story. For now, Patrick just turns the thing over in his hands, in a kitchen with $200 standing between him and nothing, and thinks one thing. What happens if I actually put this in the bank? He does it. He slides an advertisement into the ATM, endorses the back, and drives home certain that some teller will fish it out in the morning, roll her eyes, and drop it in the trash. Worst case, he has a funny story. A few days later, he checks his balance out of habit, expecting his usual $200. The slip reads $95,200 and change. The money cleared. His first thought is that it's a glitch that will vanish within the hour. He comes back the next day. Still there. The day after. still there, and now something strange happens to him. He starts running to the ATM every few hours, then almost every 10 minutes, sliding the card in, printing the slip, staring at the number, pocketing it, and going back to check again. He is afraid it will dissolve as suddenly as it appeared. A week passes. 2. It doesn't move. He keeps every slip, a little stack of them growing on his kitchen table, each one printed with the same impossible number, each one proof that he has not lost his mind.
And somewhere in there, a colder thought clicks into place, scarier than the joke. What if they never take it back? To understand why they don't, you have to look inside the machine. Because in 1995, a bank does not read a check the way a person does. Mistake 1 is the machine. Along the bottom of every check runs a row of strange, blocky numbers printed in magnetic ink. It's called the MICR line, and baked into it is the bank's routing number and the account number. Automated readers scan that magnetic code and nothing else. This isn't some 90s gimmick. The technology goes back to the 50s, when American banks were drowning in paper and processing millions of checks by hand. Magnetic numbers a machine could read in an instant saved the whole system from collapse. For decades, it worked flawlessly, but it has one blind spot built right in. The machine trusts the code. It does not read words. It does not see non-negotiable. It does not see the giant warning across the face, because to a magnetic reader, those letters simply do not exist. And the marketers, so proud of how real their fake looked, had printed a working MICR line down there in real magnetic ink. So the reader scans Patrick's joke and sees a perfectly valid account instruction. It credits the money. The computer does exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that no human ever checks its work. That's mistake 2. The people. Under American banking law, a bank that doesn't want to pay a check has a hard, short deadline to bounce it by the end of the next business day. Return it in time, and the bank is protected. Miss that window, and in a huge range of cases, the bank itself becomes accountable for the money. And here is how backwards it is. The law hands the bank the power. It gets to say no, quickly and cleanly. No lawsuit, no proof required, just reject it in time. The whole system rests on the assumption that somewhere inside the building, an alert human catches the mistake before the clock runs out. Nobody caught it. The clock ran out. And the moment it did, the law flipped 180 degrees. Now it isn't Patrick who has to explain himself, it's the bank. Two blind things met at a single point, a machine that saw only a code, and a bank that was looking the other way. But money in an account is not money in your hands. And Patrick, running to that ATM every 10 minutes, is about to understand the difference. So he does something that, for 1995, takes real nerve. He goes online. This is the age of the modem, the screech of a dial-up handshake. The early forums and bulletin boards were the first strange citizens of the internet trade stories in the dark. Patrick posts his there, and the response is instant. Hundreds of messages a day, from strangers all over the country. Some tell him to pull out every dollar in cash and drive to Mexico before it's too late. Others swear it's an FBI sting, and they are already watching him. And a few just say the same thing over and over. This is your one shot. Don't be an idiot. Somewhere in the noise, a temptation takes hold of him. He later calls it his Robin Hood problem. He starts to imagine pulling out the whole $95,000 and giving it away. Not to himself, to the people he passes on the street every day in his broke neighborhood, the ones sleeping in doorways. For a moment he pictures it, the man who took from the bank and handed it to the poor. But the fear is stronger than the fantasy. He is scared this really is a federal crime. Scared that the second the cash leaves the building, he stops being a guy who found a loophole and becomes a guy who stole. So he doesn't touch it. Not one bill. And out of that fear comes the smartest thought he has yet. Money in an account is an illusion. It's just numbers on the bank's own computer. The bank can erase them with a single keystroke anytime it wakes up. As long as the 95,000 lives on their server, it was never really his. The money has to become physical. It has to become something the bank cannot simply delete.
So Patrick walks into a branch in person and asks for one very specific thing: a cashier's check for the full amount. Here is why that move is so quietly brilliant. An ordinary check is a promise resting on your account. If something looks wrong, the bank can freeze it, claw it back, unwind it. A cashier's check is different. It's an obligation of the bank itself. The bank pulls the money from its own reserves and guarantees in writing that this check is good. It is about as close to cash as paper gets, and reversing one is almost impossible. There is even a comic reason he chooses paper over cash. He looks into simply withdrawing it, but the big safe deposit boxes are all taken. You cannot get $500 bills anymore, and $95,000 in hundreds does not fit in a small box. So, a cashier's check it is. He steps up to the window and asks them to cut one. The teller looks at the screen. The account shows $95,000, clean, cleared, sitting right there. And so by hand, the bank writes Patrick a check guaranteed by the bank for the full amount drawn on its own reserves. That is checkmate. The money is no longer a number on a server that a clerk can wipe on a slow Tuesday. Now it is paper the bank guaranteed against itself. Patrick takes that check, walks into a completely different bank across town, and locks it inside a safe deposit box. He turns the key, he shuts the door. For the first time in weeks, he breathes. It looks like he has won. It looks like the story is over. It is not. Because about 4 weeks later his phone rings, and the voice on the other end is not amused. On the line is the bank's chief of security, a man whose whole job is getting money back and breaking the people who owe it. This is not a polite call. It is not a request. It is a threat. And it goes something like this. You have committed a federal crime. Do you understand me? If that check is not sitting on my desk tomorrow morning, I am sending the police to your door. You will go to prison. Patrick hangs up with his heart slamming against his ribs. Every ounce of confidence drains out of him in a second. This is not a blind machine. This is not a sleepy back office. This is a professional, calm and certain, saying the words federal crime and police and prison. And the pressure doesn't stop at one phone call. The bank comes at him from every side. More calls. Then legal papers, served on him, trying to block him from ever cashing that cashier's check locked in the box. For days, he barely sleeps. He keeps picturing the box, the check still inside, and tries to convince himself it is safe. The message from the bank is simple and heavy.
I wouldn't do anything
We
rash
are a
if I
bank.
were you.
You are
Keep
nobody.
your head down.
Give it back and be grateful. This is the exact moment 99 people out of 100 fold. They hand the check back,
And in that
they
moment,
apologize,
the
they thank
impossible
God they
decision
aren't in a
was made.
cell, and they spend the rest
But
of their
story
lives
of that
telling the
day,
story at
that
parties.
surrender.
Patrick does something else. He does not drive to the bank. He drives to a library, a law library. And there, line by line, he starts reading the one article of the banking code this whole thing turns on. The internet comes through for him again. One of the anonymous strangers from the forum, someone who clearly knows the law cold, tells him exactly where to look, which section, which words to hunt for. And what Patrick finds on those pages flips the entire balance of power. This is what he works out, sitting in that library. For this to be a crime, fraud, forgery, theft, you need two things: a criminal intent and a criminal act. So he goes down the list, one by one, and none of it fits. He didn't forge a signature. He never signed anyone's name. The only mark on the back of that check is a smiley face he drew as a joke. He didn't steal a check from anybody. It was mailed to him, personally, with his own name printed on the envelope, by a company that wanted his attention. He didn't pretend to be someone else. He didn't hack anything, break into anything, lie to anyone. He walked a piece of paper into his own account under his own real name in broad daylight through a machine the bank put on the street corner for exactly that purpose. And under the law, everything that follows from that is not criminal at all. It is a civil dispute between a customer and his bank. A disagreement about money. Nothing a police officer has any business showing up for. And in that civil dispute, the code does not stammer. It says it plainly. The bank is responsible for accepting the check. The bank is responsible for missing its own deadline to send it back. The mistake has an owner, and the owner is wearing the suit. Which means the threat on the phone, the police at your door by morning, was air. There was no crime to charge. No officer to send. No case to file. The security man had picked up the phone and gambled that a broke, frightened writer would never read the fine print, would panic, and would hand the money back before he ever learned the truth. He gambled wrong, because the one who was bluffing on that call was never Patrick. It was the bank. So Patrick calls the bank back, but now he is the one setting terms. By this point, 6 different lawyers have told him the same thing. The money is legally his. He could simply keep it and dare them to fight. Instead, he makes a stranger, bolder demand. Fine, he tells them, I will give back every last cent. On one condition, you write me a letter. On your letterhead, in black and white, admitting that I did nothing illegal and that the mistakes here, every one of them, were yours. The bank refuses, of course. Putting that in writing is humiliating. So it goes back to leaning on him. More pressure. More lawyers. Give it back and be quiet. And that is when Patrick reaches for the one weapon a bank has no defense against. He hands the story to the press. A broke writer feeds a piece of junk mail into an ATM as a joke. The bank cashes it for $95,000. Then the same bank that slept through its own rules turns around and threatens him with prison for a crime that does not exist. In 1995, that story is pure dynamite. It runs, and it goes off. Suddenly there are cameras outside his rented apartment. Reporters, microphones. Overnight, Patrick Combs stops being a terrified debtor and becomes something else entirely. The little guy who took on a bank, out loud, and won. Now it is the bank that is trapped. Picture their position. They are a giant, one of the largest banks in the country, and their name is on the evening news attached to the phrase, slept through its own rules. Their lawyers do the math, sue him publicly, and even if they win the case, they lose the war for their reputation. Push harder, and every shove is another humiliating headline. A lawsuit would drag on for years in open court with reporters in every seat over a check the bank had already been paid back for. And the man is offering to give all the money back anyway. There is nothing left to gain and everything to lose. So the bank folds. The executives do the exact thing they dreaded. On official letterhead, they sign a letter admitting that Patrick did nothing illegal, and that every mistake at every step belonged to the bank. He gets his trophy, and he gives the money back, every cent. $95,093.35 returned. He hands it over in October of 1995, and by his own account, the timing is not an accident. That is the same stretch of days the entire country is glued to its televisions for the verdict in the O.J. Simpson trial. The bank, he believes, is counting on its little embarrassment getting lost in all that noise, hoping nobody will notice the quiet return of a check it never should have paid. They notice. And here is the last irony, the one the bank never saw coming. Within a few months, First Interstate itself is gone, swallowed whole by Wells Fargo in one of the biggest banking takeovers of the decade. The institution that threatened a broke writer with prison does not even outlive the story. So did Patrick lose? On paper, yes. The money went back. Which brings us back to the question from the very beginning. Why does the man who outsmarted a bank for $95,000 and then gave every cent of it back walk away richer than if he'd kept it? Because he never really got $95,000. He got something worth far more. A story an entire country wanted to hear, with his name in the middle of it, not as a thief, as the man who beat the system fair and square. Keep the money, and at best he has $95,000 once, plus years of lawsuits and a wrecked name. Instead, he turns the story into a career. He writes a book about it, with a title that is its own scoreboard. Man 1, Bank 0. He builds a one-man stage show out of it and packs theaters, from small rooms to off-Broadway, from the United States to Europe. He becomes the guy you fly in to tell the story of how a man with $200 outplayed an entire bank at its own game. From $200 and one ice cream cone split down the middle to that. So here is the only question left. If it had been you, holding a check the bank could not take back, staring down federal threats over a joke, which one would you have walked out with? The money or the letter?